Howdy, folks. I'm Brian Wiener. I'm with Holly Hamill and Lauren Morgan. Together with the Supernova Society, this is ideal number 11, maintain absolute accountability. So we must hold ourselves to the highest standards and own when we don't live up to them. We're the ones responsible for our own lives, and we must show up fully for ourselves and for others. And we must take ownership for ourselves and our actions and how they affect others. You know, our word matters, and it's really the only thing that we actually have that's of true value. When our actions aren't aligned with our word, we must own it and make it right. And we're ultimately responsible for ourselves and can't ask others to carry our weight.
Maintaining absolute accountability is important because accountability is the glue that ties commitment to the result. We take ownership of a situation when we are accountable, when we're being willing to answer for the outcomes that result from our choices, behaviors, and actions. When you are personally accountable, you take ownership of all the situations that you're involved in that are yours, and then you're more powerful. It's an empowering act. Do you want to tell us about the bystander effect, Brian?
Sure. So the bystander effect is really important here too. When we take ownership of a situation, it's not just our own stuff, but it can be what's happening around us. All too often, people are caught on the outside edges of things because they don't have the skill or the knowledge of how to act, or maybe they're just stunned in the moment. And that's why it's important for like us to take accountability in any given situation, so that way, like we're not just sitting around the outside and nobody's doing anything. Somebody at least is moving forward and making things happen and progressing.
I agree. I feel that it's so important that if you have a voice, if you have knowledge, if you have just even proximity to a situation and you can act, that you should. Um, Also, accountability creates value in relationships. When you're accountable, people know that they can count on you, and that allows for more intimacy and closeness. So it really does build your relationships. It also builds trust and your reputation. So when you are regularly taking accountability, you'll start to gain trust and ultimately get the reputation for being trustworthy. This increases your social capitals and opens doors and creates opportunities for you.
So maintaining absolute accountability also increases our confidence, our competence, and it also creates focus. And what I mean by that is when we hold ourselves accountable, we become aware of our blind spots. We become aware of where we're falling short in places where we want to excel. And with that knowledge, we can gain a confidence because we can create a map of how to get from point A to point B by knowing that if we're missing we're missing out on being accountable with ourselves. And this is also the difference between success and failure. A real world example for me, at least with accountability, is that I suffered a head injury while I was in my undergraduate program. And I was faced with this really difficult choice. It was either take accountability for where that injury had landed me and work incredibly hard to recover, and honestly admit that I would have to work really hard to recover and that I wasn't in the best place, or I could continue to feel helpless and allow my condition to limit me for the rest of my life and drop out of school and just not even try. So it was painstaking, and at times it felt like I was never moving forward, but every day I held myself accountable to do a little better, and I got a little better. And I want to mention that it was just as important for me to hold myself accountable to rest and allow myself time to heal through this process as it was for me to hold myself accountable to doing that hard work of rebuilding my memory, rebuilding my cognition, and all the other things that had gone wrong, like impulse control and emotional regulation.
It's funny. I'm reminded of one of our other informational broadcasts. You had talked about getting 1% better every day. I think it was the chain reactor, and how 1% every day totals up to more than doubling in a year's time. So you wind up just 1% adds up and adds up, and it really does become the difference between success and failure. And when you talk about it at an organizational level, like as a leader, right? This is like accountability is a leadership trait. And when you're at the top of the leadership pyramid, you have to take accountability for not only just your own actions, but also accountability for the actions of your team. Did you make sure that they got all of their milestones and goals right? Did you clear obstacles for them? Did you take the bullets for them? All that stuff we talk about in leadership. And I think it really does, when you take accountability, make the difference of an organization's success and failure, or a business's success and failure. And, part of that is, it improves your performance and your integrity, because when you are accountable to your timelines and you're accountable to these other things, you're creating standards and boundaries that you can let other people know what you expect and what they can expect from you, right? And when you realize that you are accountable and it's not somebody else's job to get something done, it's your job to get something done, then what you do is you start prioritizing solutions, because you actually see things that, like, oh, this isn't just about the problems we have, it's actually about what I can do to fix the problems. And when you become solutions based, you actually become much more successful in the long run.
Definitely, Brian. And that's totally related to how we can maintain absolute accountability. You kind of touched on this with the know your role. When you know your role, and not only do you know your role, but you also make sure that you're being true to yourself and that you are adopting a role that you actually want to be in. But knowing your role helps you know what your responsibilities actually are. And when you can identify what your responsibilities actually are, it's a lot easier to hold yourself accountable to them. You can't hold yourself accountable if you don't know what you're holding yourself accountable to. And it's also important to be honest with both yourself and others. How much can you take on? Don't overcommit, like you said earlier, Brian, your word is so important. And so if you're telling people yes, 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 all the time and overcommitting, and then you're not able to be accountable to all of those yeses you've had, you lose that social stock. You lose people having faith in you or believing that you're going to follow through with what you say. And I think that's all I have to say on that. Sorry.
Great, that was perfect. So, and no need to apologize here. However, when we do make mistakes, that was not bad for you, but when we do make mistakes and we drop the ball, like we're human, we're going to do that, and we're not perfect.
Well, speak for yourself.
I knew that was coming. We're not perfect. So when we slip up, part of accountability is apologizing when we make mistakes. We teach apology languages, kind of like love languages, in our Chain Reactor program, which is something else that we do with Supernova Society. So let us know if that's something that you're interested in. But to stay on track, a good apology consists of owning what's yours. I've had so many friends that maybe like made a mistake, and sometimes it's been a pretty bad mistake, and like I could have gotten really frustrated with them, but because they immediately owned it and said, you know what, I take responsibility for this, like this is my stuff, I own it, I'm gonna fix it. And then one of the best ways to truly apologize too is change behavior. It's not enough to say sorry and keep doing the thing, but change behavior is also a beautiful way to like truly apologize. So when you know better, do better.
Yeah, and it's important to really use our time wisely. When we realize that we're accountable, and that we have choices, right? That goes back to that solution-based thing that we were talking about, where time is kind of like money. You only get so much time, and you can't replace it once it's gone. Whereas money, you can actually replace it. So we have to choose how we spend it. Do we choose it to spend it, learning that new language that we wanted to, or do we spend it watching TV? Do we learn guitar, or do we, just sit in the park all day and nap? Both can be useful, but we have to take accountability for that. Uma, did you have something you wanted to add there?
Yeah, and I think what you're really talking about too is that it's just practicing good boundaries with yourself. Like you did that awesome Taco Tuesday last month about the power of no, and how saying no actually opens you up to all these yeses.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's like that time is money, and like they're very similar. You can spend them and you never get it back. So it's important where you do that. And one ways that we can be better about that, right, is we reflect through all of these things, right? We understand what our role was in any situation, both going forward and in the past, right? We're honest with ourselves about what our responsibility is for that. Right? We apologize if we were in the wrong, or if we didn't deliver something that we said that we were going to do, and we use our time wisely. And then whenever we reflect through this and we find out that we're not meeting up to our own standards or our own boundaries, then we refine that, right? And it goes back to that know better, do better sort of mentality.
So, to wrap all of this up, we have this quote by Moliere. It is not only what we do, but also what we do not do for which we are accountable.
Yeah, that's powerful. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time. We're the Supernova Society. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.